Hello and welcome to Pappy Hour, episode 13. Today we have an interesting topic that is that we parlayed from last episode, which was about Lake Tahoe and the Tahoe Basin. And this time we're migrating about 20 miles to the east over the Washoe Mountains into Virginia City. We are going to talk
Come on
Virginia City,
down.
the history, some crazy stories, and some family stories. So we're going to kind of cover the gamut of what we always want to cover on Pappy Hour of bringing history to our watchers and our listeners, but at the same time, bringing in family stories and the experiences of both myself and my lovely co-host and daughter, the fine Jessica Earnshaw.
Wow, what an intro.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
We
that's
should
pretty
start
good.
doing it.
You're finally getting the hang of
You know
it.
what the difference is?
What?
Since we're talking about Virginia City, I wore a flashy shirt,
Oh.
kind of being like the Comstock Cowboys or something.
Oh.
And it is evening on a Friday night in San Diego. So
We're not drinking water.
we are not drinking water. We are truly going to Virginia City.
Enjoying an ice cold beer while we're sitting here chatting with you tonight.
It's like we were at the Bucket of Blood Saloon tonight.
I've been there as a young girl.
Yes.
It's not a great place to take a young daughter, but
Well, you remember it.
it was a big old biker bar, right?
No. Virginia City is not about bikers. It's about tourism. So maybe a few motorcycles, but
Well, yeah, Virginia City was always a special place for our family. That's what we like to do on Happy Hour is talk about
special places.
different topics, all different, wide range of things, but weave in our family story and give our perspective on it and pay tribute to all of our awesome ancestors who, in this particular episode, we're going to talk about how our ancestor came from Ireland and settled in Virginia City and the story of him.
Yeah.
And which is a crazy story. And also we can touch on a lot of, Virginia City history and the surrounding area because it's a really cool place.
Yeah. And let's just touch on the fact that this episode of Virginia City, we have real family history. So last episode of Lake Tahoe, the history started with our family and building a cabin there in 1990.
Yeah. And if it's about our family history, we've done our homework.
Yeah, we did a little homework. But and then going back, Catalina, no family history. The Gold Rush, not a lot of pertinent family history other than being in California. But so this one, Virginia City, really, we got some roots there.
Yeah. And by family history, I just mean, or by doing our homework, I just mean that we know the dates, we know the stories, like we know the real nitty gritty because your lovely mom, my lovely grandmother, has really dedicated her life to genealogy.
Troves of information.
And fact-checking dates and discovering new information and combing through archives. I mean, she's spent a lot of her life finding the deets. Like, she gets the details.
Absolute shout out to Meemaw, the family genealogist, who is responsible for linking us to our cousins in Ireland.
Who we know to this day and will be visiting shortly.
And Kim and I just visited in September.
Yep.
And they're coming this way from Ireland to San Diego this spring. And we owe that to Meemaw of being a diligent genealogist for most of her 81 years on this planet.
Yeah, one smart lady. So she found all of this stuff, right, about our ancestor Daniel Carroll?
Well, no. She didn't, because a lot of that information was passed down to her.
Right, but she was a diligent steward and
she has the
documents. And
everybody that had done genealogy prior always had a lot of gaps. She filled in a lot of those gaps. She got a lot of the unanswered questions, and has also just found a ton of information. So
yeah,
we're going to go over a few of that today. So we'll start off with Virginia City, because it is a crazy boom town. I mean, you talk about like boom towns and ghost towns. It really is a true boom town.
What's a boom town?
A boom town is a town that just springs up out of nowhere. Boom town. Boom. It's a town. And
just as quickly as it rises, it falls.
And as quickly as it rises and it falls. And the population numbers are just incredible. So Virginia City.
Where is Virginia City?
Virginia City lies, ironically, at the same, almost the same exact altitude as Lake Tahoe, 6,200 feet above sea level.
Well, that's weird because you would think of it like the desert.
It is because it's in the rain shadow of the Tahoe Basin, so it doesn't get a lot of water. Gets
Yeah.
very little water compared to the western slope of the Sierras, a
Mhm.
fraction of it. Um, the uh, the the it's a desolate area. There's not a lot of plants growing. There's some shrubs. You remember it kind of looking deserty, right, when you were
Yeah.
there as a little kid?
Like a little ghost town. I mean, there's people that live there and it's a little touristy. It's just a cute little old Western town that you roll through and it has, a haunted mansion experience, which we did.
Yes.
It has like a little arcade.
You can go into the mines. We went deep into the mines.
We went into the mine.
Yeah, tell that. Okay, let's
Well,
just
so we'll get
let's
there,
start.
but we want to start with, where's Virginia City?
All right. So it lies practically in the middle of if you go to the latitude of Lake Tahoe and go 20 miles to the east. So it's southeast of Reno, Nevada, and it's 20 miles east of Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And you just go up and over the
How long does it
mountain.
take there from Tahoe?
I think it's about 40-minute drive. It's a real windy road.
Yeah.
So probably 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a little more than 20 miles. It might
So
be
how did
25
Virginia
miles.
City come to fame?
So as far as I can, there's not a lot of history about it before the discovery of silver there.
Mhm.
But the population in 1850, so I wrote down some population numbers because it just is crazy on the way. So in 1850, there was literally a few hundred people there. There was nothing there.
Mm.
But I guess they had looked at it for mining potential, and they were what was there. Virginia City wasn't there, but there was a town called Gold Hill, and they had discovered previously gold in Gold Hill and
Mhm.
had mined it. And then north of Gold Hill so the northern part of Gold Hill, which would be the southern part of Virginia City. That's when miners discovered the silver, and it was the Comstock lode. They discovered the
What's the load?
um, the it's the gold rush. I mean, the lode is the vein, right? The area. And it was
Okay.
called the Comstock lode. And ironically, Comstock was a feller up there, and he didn't discover it. Two other guys did, but he took the credit for it.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't called the Philip something lode or this lode. It was the Comstock lode. So
Well,
the guy was a good weasel.
who who was the first person to discover gold? Was it really Sutter?
Um, no, it was. Oh, we just talked about it. It was Sutter's buddy.
Yeah.
He worked for Sutter.
All right. So, you never really know who the first person. I'm sure the Native Americans discovered it long before.
I'm sure they were mining the.
But the gold was just flowing down the rivers. The silver was deep
Yes,
in the mountains,
this
right?
wasn't runoff. You had to get busy. You had to bore a hole in the mountain
Mhm.
and go in hundreds of feet and carve out the ore and take the ore out and then smelt it down. And that took mercury.
Okay, so how did people learn how to smelt silver?
Well, that's why there was a lot of immigrants doing it, because it was a mining practices that had been practiced for hundreds of years in Ireland, in England, in Scotland.
Oh, so
So
all those people
a
were coming over and
lot
they
of
knew
immigrants
how to mine.
of our forefathers of that area
Yeah.
were miners. And so,
Interesting.
yeah, in the process of mining, I'm not, you
It's
know,
hard work.
it's extremely hard work, but the smelting process
It's been
in
around
a
a long time.
nutshell, it goes something like this. You take rocks and you pound them down into little rocks, and then you melt them down, and then the materials separate. So it's the same way that you would get copper out of material, iron. Iron makes steel,
How did people figure this out?
gold, silver, plutonium, whatever. Minerals
Yeah.
are minerals, and they're into other rocks. They're formed
Yeah.
and bound with other rocks. So you got to separate them, and there's a long process. I don't know how
Yeah.
exactly how it works, but I know silver mining is kind of a polluting mining because you take um, you take quicksilver or Cinnabar, which ironically is New Almaden, was the Cinnabar mine. So from Cinnabar, you smelt that down and you get quicksilver, which quicksilver is mercury. And then you use that mercury to help you extract gold and silver. So that's why New Almaden was so was booming at the time. There was no silver, there was no gold in Almaden, but there was
Quicksilver.
quicksilver.
Very
ties
interesting.
ties back in. And ironically, our families moved from Virginia City to
Almond.
San Jose.
Yeah.
So do you think there was any coincidence that in Virginia City, everybody knew of New Almaden because that's where the quicksilver came from?
Very interesting
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, there we go. So, getting back to the formation, I mean, I don't really need to talk about Native Americans there. It was a desolate area. If you were 20 miles from Lake Tahoe and you were a Washoe Indian, would you be hanging out in the scrub of Nevada City, or would you be sitting on the lakes of Tahoe,
Yeah.
on the shores of Tahoe? So, um, not going to get into that. But in 1850, there was hardly anybody there. 1859, the Comstock lode's discovered. By 1860, there was 2,300 people there. So it's kind of growing slowly. 1862, 4,000. 1863, height of the Civil War, tons of silver mining. We needed silver so we could fight the Confederacy. So the Union was very, all that silver was going right back into the Union coffers, the U.S. coffers, to fight the Confederacy,
To use to what?
fight the Civil War.
But what was it actually used for?
Well, it was used for money, so you could
Oh, it was literally
it was
like they
money.
were mining Bitcoin and
Yeah,
paying for the war in Bitcoin.
yes. Um, the it was not until 1873 that our government got off. They demonetized silver. Before that, our coins were actually silver. So you could have silver
And make
and
your own
and it
money.
was work. Well, it would, yeah, our money was made from silver. So a silver dollar was a silver worth a dollar.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, and then in 1873, we got off that. And gold and silver, although, what do we say, 100 times difference now,
Mhm.
silver at $23 an ounce, gold at 2,000 an ounce. Back then, they were very close. So gold was vital.
So once they caught wind that there was silver in Virginia City,
Boom,
yeah.
boom town.
And so one of those boom inhabitants was
Yes, Daniel Carroll. Let me finish up with the during the heyday, 1870, it went up. It went down from 1863 during the Civil War. There was 15,000 people. Well, then it kind of went down after the Civil War, 7,000. But then they found a new vein, and it went crazy. 1875, there were 25,000 people.
they found a new area of silver.
Yeah, like a new vein, like a new Comstock lode. But
Oh,
25,000 people. It was as great as the population at that time of Sacramento. And
oh yeah.
Reno only had 1,000 people habitating there.
Wow.
And San Francisco was by far the largest city at over 200,000 people by 1880.
Yeah.
And by 1880, the population had gone down to 11,000, so it cut back in half.
Mhm.
And the Comstock lode kind of tailed off. Then you look at 1880, 11,000, 1890, 8,000, 1900, 3,000, then 1910 down to 2,000. And then since 1920, it's been under 1,000 people there.
Yeah, it's a tiny little town.
In 2020, there were like 750. And I looked up for the 2023, 661. So people are not moving to Virginia City right
No, they
now.
lost even more people.
No. And it's so close to Carson City. They're not doing much building in Virginia City at
Mhm.
all, if any. So even if you're going to work in Virginia City for the tourist trade,
You just
you're
commute.
gonna live in Carson City
Yeah.
and get a nice house there, and you're gonna drive 20 minutes and get there.
Mhm.
The tourism is booming there. Last year they had almost 2 million visitors to Virginia City. 2 million.
That's a lot.
Yes. It is said to be the world-renowned ghost town of the West
And
because
one of the ghosts that lives in those mines
Daniel Carroll.
is our lovely,
All right,
your
should we get into Daniel Carroll?
well,
So we know
yeah.
it's a boom town. They found silver. They mined the absolute crap out of the silver. I mean, it was just bustling. The boom died in 1878. So 59, 69, 70. It's about a 20-year boom.
Mhm.
So a 20-year boom of just mining like crazy. With that mine, and last episode we touched on what happened to Tahoe during that time. So it wasn't just miners, it was miners, it was transportation people. Someone had to take care of all of the horses,
The
all of the
grocers,
meals. They had to feed 25,000 people.
nurses,
They
doctors.
weren't growing any food in Virginia City, right? So
Mhm.
all that food had to be grown somewhere. Where was it grown? It was probably grown down in the valley and brought
Over by mule.
over over the Sierra Nevadas
Mhm.
to feed those people, right? Because
Yeah.
if you go east, Donner Party, there's not much growing there.
Yeah, here in the salt
If you
flats.
go north and south, it looks the same. So think of the food that it took to feed 25,000
A
people.
lot of livestock,
A lot of livestock. They probably ate bacon for breakfast,
eggs.
ham sandwich for lunch, and a steak for dinner. It was good eating.
Oh, man, I mean, just couldn't imagine mining all day, like,
At one time, there
that
was said to be
is
over 50 saloons and brothels along the main drag. 50 saloons and brothels.
I mean, you imagine it like it's a movie scene in
Yeah,
your head, but imagine really being there
yeah,
for that period of time.
yeah. It's good. So it brings the tourism in. The town's hanging on. It's world renowned enough where people that are, you know, coming to California, okay, we'll go to Vegas, we'll go to Tahoe,
Google
and
what's in the
we
area.
got to see Virginia City.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit about our lovely family member who sadly perished
Yes.
in Virginia City, and we'll get into that whole story
Well,
because
not in
it's
Virginia City. So he was actually outside of Virginia City.
oh,
And okay, we're gonna get to Sam Clemens. We got a good Sam Clemens story in a little bit, but we're gonna talk about Daniel Carroll. Okay,
and Daniel Carroll is who? He's
Daniel Carroll.
your great great grandfather,
Yes,
and he's my great great great, my triple great.
yeah, he's my great great grandfather, Daniel Carroll. He was born in Waterford County, Ireland, in 1846.
Which are where our cousins live
They still
today,
live.
and
He was
we've
born in
been many
a
times.
little different town, but in Waterford County. And he tragically died on June 15th, 1906. June 14th, 1906, June 15th. It was late at night, so I don't know what day, but
So he was way after the
1906.
boom.
He was way after the boom. That's the crazy thing. He was 27 years after the boom had ended, but he still lived in Virginia City and he was still mining silver.
And when did he move there?
So we think he immigrated about 1880 from Ireland, where he was neighborhood of 34 years old.
So still right at the tail end of the boom.
He came there after the boom was over, but
Yeah.
there's some reports that he might have gone somewhere in Colorado and was a miner first, and then got to Virginia City.
Mhm. And
But
did he bring his family with him?
well, no, he just brought him. He came over with his sister, who was a widow, and her two children, I believe. Um, So Daniel Carroll came over. So Daniel Carroll then married um, Elizabeth Dixon. So Daniel Carroll married Elizabeth Dixon, who was the daughter of Robert Reed Dixon. Okay, Robert Reed Dixon. So um, we're going to talk about the furniture story. The furniture story starts with Robert Reed Dixon, who then had a daughter. I'm sorry. Robert Reed Dixon's daughter was Edith Dixon and married my great grandfather, Richard Carroll, who all resided
So his son.
his son.
Okay. Different grandfather.
Yeah. So let's get back to Daniel Carroll.
Genealogy is confusing, okay? It's hard to
Well,
keep track.
it is. And I'll tell you what, it's real easy when you get the flow charts going and they call them a pedigree chart.
Yeah.
And then you can like, oh, look how it goes. And
Visual, but when you got it all in your head, it's hard to keep track of.
yeah, and when you talk in Irish relatives, it's either Daniel or Richard or Daniel or William or Robert. There's about 5 names or and it's ironic. We don't have a lot of Patricks. I believe I'm the first Patrick.
I know.
Yeah, not a lot of Patricks. So Daniel Carroll, he got there. He was mining somewhere outside. He was mining in a town called Como in Lyon County. So he was in a surrounding area. He was mining silver, and he had a stroke at 60 years old, had a stroke of bad luck, and I'm going to let you read it from there because
Yeah,
it
so
is
this
a
is really interesting.
really interesting
Tell the
story.
backstory of this article I'm about to read.
Well, I think the article is going to speak for itself, but
Our grandmother found this article, or was she given this
she
article?
was given this
She was
article.
aware.
Yeah.
Okay,
But also, ironically, someone in Ireland that she was in contact with doing genealogy also had the same article about Daniel Carroll.
that
And she's
is,
like, I got that article.
yeah,
So that kind of proved that because there's quite a few Daniel Carrolls in Ireland
yeah.
and
It,
that immigrated and that are in United
and she had
States.
to start from scratch. She didn't, wasn't really sure 100%. So any clue she gets to reinforce the idea that this is the guy
Yes.
helps that her then find additional family members.
And the problem isn't only that there's hundreds of Daniel Carrolls, but a lot of the dates are wrong. People lied about their age. I mean, you think about like today and someone lying about their age to get in a bar. People lied about their age to get a job,
Yeah.
marry somebody, immigrate,
How are they going to know
find, get a loan. So there wasn't,
the accuracy of the dates?
yeah, people weren't really fair. No one really, if you didn't like it, it was kind of tough luck, right? So you could age discriminate by young and by old.
Oh,
So
yeah.
people were constantly lying about their age and not telling the truth of dates, when you were born,
Just trying to get by.
when you got married.
Back in the 1800s, you had to do
Yes.
a couple of things.
If you had a baby, what was that baby's birth date? Well, then when did you get married? Well, if you had a baby out of wedlock, you were frowned upon. So,
Yeah.
oh, we were married back then. And then so
Yeah.
it's genealogy is confusing because of so many different facts that you try to weave these all in there.
Yep.
So originally they thought Daniel Carroll was born in 1850, but we think it's 1846 now and talking to
Yeah.
Meemaw, that's a good date. So the 60-year-old guy, he's out working a mine somewhere in the real outside areas of Nevada,
Lyon County or Leon?
Leon County,
Lyon.
Leon County.
Whatever.
And here's what happened to him.
All right. So I'm going to read this. Bear with me here. Killed in explosion at Como was the headline. Daniel Carroll blown 70 feet while thawing powder. Daniel Carroll was killed at the Buckeye Mine in Como, Lyon County last night while thawing giant powder in the shaft house, which exploded, killing him and wrecking the building and hoist. His body was found about 70 feet from the place in a terrible mutilation condition, indicating death was instantaneous. As he was alone at the time, it will never be known exactly how the accident occurred, but from the destruction wrought, it is inferred that an entire case of powder exploded.
Boom.
Carroll was employed as night foreman and resided in Gold Hill for many years and was an exemplary citizen. Undertaken Kuhn, Ed Gladding, and Martin Lynch, the latter two men, son-in-law of the deceased, left for Como immediately on receipt of news of the accident and brought the body to Kuhn's undertaking parlors today. Decedent was a deceased.
The deceased.
Decedent, I've never heard that word, was a native of Ireland, aged about 54 years and leaves 7 children. Mrs. J. E. Marshall, Miss Ed Gladding, Mrs. Martin Lynch, Miss Katie Carroll, Richard Carroll, Mrs. O. Lee Kiblinger, and Will Carroll. The Buckeye Mine is one of the locations owned by the company represented by Emmett Boyle. The loss and damage to the property has not been ascertained. Mr. Kuhn finished the chronicle with these additional details of the frightful incident. A blast had been fired in the mine and failed to break the rock, and Carroll went on top to get more powder and was thawing out a box on the forge in the blacksmith shop when the explosion occurred. The body was blown through the end of the building, and the trunk was found on the opposite slope of a hill 60 feet away. The head, legs, and arms were blown to fragments and scattered over an area of several acres, and the heart and liver were found at the bottom of a chute of dumping mine cars. The shoes were found 500 yards away, torn to fragments, and a pocket in the overalls was out as clean as if done with a knife, and a purse containing $7 in coin was found uninjured in the immediate vicinity. Carroll was a man 5 feet 10 or 11 inches in stature, but the headless and limbless trunk is less than 4 feet in length and is a horrible sight, covered with blood and blackened with powder smoke. A coroner's jury viewed the body, but had not returned a verdict when Mr. Kuhn left with the mutilated body. The blacksmith shop is a total wreck, drills, picks, and other tools being found half a mile from the scene of the explosion. The damage to the buildings and electric hoist is estimated at $3,000. The shock of the explosion was felt throughout the entire district, and men employed in other mines at first attributed it to an earthquake. The power pole line in the vicinity was also wrecked.
Wow.
Died. Carroll in Como, Lyon County, June 15th. Daniel Carroll, a native of Ireland, age 54 years. Funeral will take place on Monday morning from St. Patrick's Church,
Oh, Patrick.
Gold Hill, immediately after 9 o'clock Mass. Friends and acquaintances are invited to attend.
Wow. What a detail that they wrote about this in the paper, of that detail that your limbs were blown off and your heart and liver
Jesus.
were, I mean, that's crazy how interesting, how intricate they wrote that. That was,
Man,
yeah.
poor Daniel Carroll, just
Daniel
blown to
Carroll,
bits.
my great great grandfather, your great 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 grandfather.
My triple great grandfather
Yeah.
had a rough death.
Yeah. He had a good 60
At
years
least it was
running.
instantaneous, when a whole case of powder explodes in front of you.
I know my only big, I understand the pretty much all of that, except I'm thawing a case of powder on a forge. Okay, so that equates that I have a artillery shell and I'm going to warm it up in the fireplace and hope it doesn't go off. So,
What? Well, yeah, I don't get what he was
okay.
doing when he
Well,
died.
so that implies he was warming. Okay. So probably it was in the winter. Well, it was February, right?
Yeah.
No, it was June. It was June 15th.
Yeah.
You're not thawing anything in June and
June
that.
15th.
So there's some term that we're not getting about thawing or doing it. Thawing might be prepping. So he was prepping powder.
Yeah.
He was doing
I'll look it up.
something with that. But anyway, he was near a forge. Well, we know a forge is going to have fire, and it was a discharge of a whole box of powder. Yeah. So that's where it all started. And then his son, okay, was Richard Carroll. So here's where it gets the immigration, the flow down to San Jose goes. So
He had 7 children when he died.
it's 7 children. So one of his children was Richard Carroll, Mima's grandfather. So it wasn't that far away.
Yeah.
It was your Mima. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Was his son.
he grew up in Virginia City, Gold Hill, and he met Edith Dixon. And they were little,
Husband and wife.
teenage. Well, they ran away together.
Oh.
They ran away. They eloped in scandal. So
Which was a big
they
no-no.
they left and they went to Reno, Nevada, and they got married. And then he drove a buggy in 1911 up and over Donner Pass and all the way to San Jose.
And that's how they came to San Jose.
That's how they came to San Jose.
From elopement.
Yeah, from Reno, from Virginia City to Reno, got on the buggy, and started over the hill, 1911, and they got to San Jose.
Horse-drawn.
Yeah, horse-drawn buggy.
Or mule.
Mule, horse, yeah, some animal. Wasn't oxen.
No cars going over the Donner Pass then?
I don't think so. There might have been. I mean, cars
There a
were
road?
starting to be around. Well, there was a road, but whether it was a car-bound road or it needed a mule to get over it, I don't know. I mean, mules could go a lot more places than cars could in those days.
Yeah.
So then he had a son, which was William Bud Carroll, my grandfather. And then came our Mima, Kathy Carroll, and then me, and then you. So 1, 2,
Wow,
3,
that's pretty
4.
cool.
That's 5 generations that went kaboom in Boomtown.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so now we're gonna
The
go.
level
we're
of
gonna,
detail was a bit much. I was reading that article for the first time. To all
I
of
love
our-
it. That's what I wanted. She read it for the first
The
time.
shock and I mean, I think you could hear the surprise in my voice. And as his liver and heart were found
I
at
know.
the bottom of the shaft.
I know. The only happy ending was his money was still in the purse, and someone that found his body got $7.
How much was that back then?
Few
Really?
$100s.
Really?
$300-$400.
$7 is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk money? So How much do you think the Comstock lode was worth?
That whole so basically giant section of silver.
Yeah. So the silver and gold, because remember the Comstock lode was Gold Hill.
Oh,
We're gonna put it all together, but
meaning just a giant, beautiful
of gold and
discovery of
silver
minerals.
in um, Gold Hill and Virginia City, that whole load in 20 years, how much came out of the earth today? Today value,
A billion.
1 billion.
Really?
Is that a guess?
Yeah.
Did you see my notes?
No, it was a complete guess.
$1 billion. It's crazy. It was 7 million tons. It was then it was $14 million in gold and $21 million in silver. So back in 1877,
Just in that one hill.
1877 was $35 million. And $35 million in today money is 1 billion.
Do you think was our
Wow.
great
Comstock
great
load.
great grandfather, was he wealthy? Like, did he find a lot of silver and gold? Did he
I
have a
would
lot of
not,
luck, or
I
did
don't think
he?
so. If he was
Yeah,
out, he was an employee for one. He
yeah,
was not a mine owner. He wasn't he probably would have been done a lot better if he was a um, bar owner or restaurant owner,
yeah, got into retail like you.
or ran a, you
A
know,
supportive business.
something else. But I think most of the miners didn't make a ton of money. They worked for one guy who was either really rich, or was going bankrupt.
Yeah,
So while we're talking money, also the money that the Comstock lode was really supported through San Francisco. So that's where all the banks were,
they bankrolled the whole operation.
and they had 10 years of making gold. So there was already
They were
10
rich.
years of wealth from the gold rush in San Francisco. So when this next Comstock lode came and the next boom, that's where the rich that already had money came and bought it and put their money down, made more money. And they say
Investing.
everybody who made it big in Virginia City, they were spending their wealth in San Francisco
Yeah,
because they weren't building a mansion there. They all went back to San Francisco.
and built mansions there.
And it seems so far, right? It's 200, what's it? It's 250 miles at least to San Francisco. So 250 miles on a horse and buggy in 1877. That's a long trip.
Mhm.
That's a long trip. But
What was
that's
the route they took?
Donner Summit. I
Yeah.
think there was the pass of Highway 50 as well. You could also go that way through Placerville because Placerville has been around. So you either went the southern route
More through the
through,
valley.
um, well, you went through Placerville and down to Sacramento, or you went through um, over Donner Pass through Auburn
Mhm.
down to Sacramento. So there's two ways to get to Sacramento: Highway 50, Highway 80. Those are the routes.
It's interesting.
But that's some big money, and that's where all the San Francisco more wealth came into. You really look uh, of why San Francisco has been the city it has been is really because of gold rush and the silver rush.
Well, yeah,
The
all the man-made beauty in San Francisco, like the bridges and the roads and the architecture and the museums and, especially building roads and houses on those hills, like that took a lot of money to create the city of San Francisco.
oh yeah, great
And
wealth.
basically the discovery of all of California's natural resources bankrolled the entire development of San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's very
Okay, another
interesting.
interesting fellow who spent 2 years, lived in Virginia City for almost 2 years, was a gentleman by the name of Samuel Clemens.
Why do I know that name?
You better know that name. Huck Finn,
That's what it is.
Mark Twain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Samuel Clemens was a reporter for the Territorial Enterprise, lived in Virginia City for 2 years, and first used the pen name of Mark Twain in February 1863 while residing in Virginia City. So Mark Twain basically was invented in Virginia City.
Why did he use a pen name?
I don't know, it was brilliant. Mark Twain, you know what Mark Twain stands for?
No.
Okay, Mark Twain was a measurement. So when you go along the Mississippi River, and you're in a paddle boat. I'm sorry, you're in a, oh, I didn't do a little homework on this one, but you're in a riverboat, okay? And how you got up and down the Mississippi River was fairly shallow. They didn't obviously dredge it back then, so it was fairly shallow. So you used long poles, and you would be on this riverboat, and you would walk, you would take the pole, and you would put it underwater till you hit the bottom, and then you would walk the pole from the front of the riverboat to the back.
To push you along?
That was your propulsion.
Oh, they didn't for boats that didn't have steam.
Didn't have it. It wasn't a big steam because that was really expensive. So there was no mechanical motors.
And there was no oars?
They didn't oar them, and I don't know why they didn't oar. It must have been because of
They were narrow?
maybe things floating in there. Now, the Mississippi River, you don't really seem as narrow, but I can't answer that. I don't know why they
Okay, so
didn't
that's called a
oar.
Mark Twain?
Yeah, and it also took less room because if you look at an oar, you have to be inside the boat, like look at a Viking ship. But a river boat, you could use that all for storage and just be on the very outside rail. You only needed a foot to walk, and then you could take that pole and walk the distance, and then you would pull it up, walk back to the front.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that before.
Yeah, it's kind of a Huck Finn,
But
Mark
what's
Twain
Mark
thing.
Twain then?
It's a measurement in
Of
the water. Mark Twain.
I did not know that.
And it was like Twain was either 10 feet, 20 feet, but Mark Twain. And that's how he took that name, Mark Twain.
I mean, it's kind of a swaggy name back in the 1800s,
Yeah,
Mark.
it was a command on a riverboat.
Yeah.
So Samuel Clemens in Virginia City, living there for 2 years.
Did
Never
he
knew
just
that.
hop around from place to place and
Lived all
write?
over the place. He was a nomad.
Yeah.
He lived there for 2 years, and he left there in the summer of 1864. He lived there from 1862 to 1864. He left there because a local newspaper guy didn't like his style of writing and challenged him to a duel. So Samuel Clemens, chicken out, and he skipped town. He didn't want to duel this guy.
Dang.
And he wrote a lot of
A
this.
duel?
Yeah, he wrote a lot of this in his novel.
With a gun? Like on
Yeah.
either side of the street?
Yeah. Hamilton, Burr style. Walk 20 feet, turn around, and shoot at each other. That's how Alexander Hamilton was killed in a duel with Aaron Burr.
It's like arm wrestling.
Don't
for
you remember the
death.
cookie commercial? Aaron Burr, this guy's got a mouthful
I
of
mean,
cookies.
it's just so funny to think that men were like, you know what? Me and you. Duel.
It's the ultimate MMA.
Yeah. I mean, why didn't they just fight? Then both get to live. One wins, you know?
It was gentlemen. You didn't want to get your trousers dirty. And a lot
But
of
one
duels.
of you had to die.
No, you got one shot. A duel. So a lot of duels, this would happen in a lot of duels. So a guy would you did someone wrong, or you got a hold of his daughter or something, right? And so someone challenged you to a duel. You also, one man might have needed to challenge you to a duel to save face, but he didn't really want to kill you.
Oh.
So we would have a duel, and we would turn around, and you'd shoot a little left, I'd shoot a little right. We shake hands afterwards, and everything's good.
Settled.
Yeah. So, but then there was also hatred duels where like people tried to
Oh, no, I want to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you remember you were shooting one shot from a smooth bore pistol. It was not very accurate. And you were usually about 25 feet away.
That's close.
Well, it's not. But so a lot of
When you're
times
shooting point blank at someone.
one guy missed, one guy hit, or both. Some duels ended where both died. Boom, boom. Couple of headshots, lights out for both guys. So
That would be a crazy Friday night in Virginia City. I'm watching
no.
a duel. I'm going to the brothel. I'm grabbing a couple of pints. I mean, Jesus.
Comstock Cowboys don't have anything on Virginia City in 1877.
Oh my God. What a lifestyle.
So he left town, skidded away. But he did write a novel called Roughing It in 1872. And Roughing It has a lot of, I know you're a big reader, Jessica. So you might want to pick up one of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain's not so famous works, Off the Mississippi River and something about the Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah,
Mark
that's
Twain.
interesting. So he wrote that while he was living in Virginia City?
It's a lot. I mean, yeah, he was there 62 to 64. It published in 1872.
So
It was
Mark
kind of
Twain's a
his
little bit of a scaredy cat?
he might have been a little scaredy
That's
cat.
what you're saying? Or actually, I think he's
Maybe
actually
he was
just a
just
smart
smart.
man.
Maybe he was smart.
I would have done the
You're
exact
like,
same thing, Mark.
I'm not you don't like my style of writing? Boom, and that
And
he
back then, no
probably
one tracks you down.
oh, yeah,
Off you
probably went
go.
down to San Francisco.
Off you
Um,
go.
but in 1880, it was definitely the second it was one of the biggest cities on the West Coast, and it was really only second in the booming, to San Francisco. 1880, Virginia City. It's got 661 residents today. I
And it had
mean,
how many people?
at its biggest peak, 1875, 25,000.
Yeah.
25,000.
And okay, so do you have anything else you want to touch on, or can we get into a little bit of the ghost stories here?
Okay, we get ghost stories, but we got to talk about the furniture. But before the furniture, I just want to say a placer. So what was a placer? Remember we were talking about that? It's a deposit of minerals.
Okay.
So Placer County, but a placer is a deposit.
Placer.
I talked about Placer.
Yeah.
And originally Gold Hill was first, right? And then Virginia City came. It's kind of weird how the story of Virginia City, I couldn't peg down where they got that from, but there was one guy who dropped a bottle of whiskey in a saloon in Gold Hill, and his name was, his nickname was Virginia Benny something, and then so it wasn't really clear where the
It just
name,
was named quick.
yeah, Virginia City. So the name was a little unclear. But by 1876, the state of Nevada produced half of the precious metals in the entire United States.
Do you
That's how
think
much
that
mining went on in
do you
Nevada.
think that has any connection to why today, like, Area 51 is there and, like, all the aliens are running all around Nevada?
No, the aliens don't want gold and silver.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right. Another episode about aliens. Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about the furniture, okay?
Yeah, this is a
Because
cool story.
what between my daughter Jessica and our extraordinaire producer Tristan, there's two of the heirs of the furniture. So one of the four, or you're going to have to caretake it for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
But
So we
uh,
were blessed with this beautiful set of furniture, which consists of a headboard, a bed frame.
a large headboard,
Yep, a very intricate wood carven headboard. It's beautiful
7 feet tall.
complex and huge.
Yep.
A bed frame, and then like a side
Nope.
type of thing.
The side tables were bought by
No, I mean that
Meemaw.
thing in there.
Yeah. So two big pieces of furniture. One is a full-length mirror.
Yeah.
So it would be some drawers and then a mirror. So for a woman to get ready and look in the mirror.
hmm
And the other one is a wash basin.
Yeah.
And then it has a marble top and two little like marble soap holders.
Yeah.
And then you'd put your basin in there, your jug, pour your water, wash your face, do your shaving, whatever. So
Yeah, do your morning skincare routine.
3 really incredible pieces of furniture. But it came from Robert Reed Dixon.
Who
Okay.
was
So it didn't come from the Carroll side. It
Yeah.
came from Robert Reed Dixon, who lived in Virginia City,
Mhm.
who also is your great 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 grandfather.
Mhm.
So the same generation as Daniel, the same lineage
Of Daniel.
of Daniel Carroll.
Right.
but
Their
it-
kids ran off together, moved to San Jose.
Yes, Robert Reed's daughter
Edith.
married Daniel's son, Richard Carroll, and they came to San Jose.
Okay, so this
So-
guy bought the furniture.
He bought the furniture, bought it in Virginia City.
What year?
We think about 1880.
Dang, so this is 145 years old 45-year-old furniture.
145-year-old furniture.
44.
Yeah. All right. So the furniture was made in Michigan or Wisconsin. Unfortunately, we didn't go up, take a picture of the label on the back, but there's a date on it. I really want to say Michigan because I think it was like Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah.
So this furniture was
Handmade.
handmade in Michigan, shipped down the Mississippi River into New Orleans, put on a ship, went around the Horn into San Francisco, and then muled up to Virginia City from San Francisco.
Which would today be, about a 3-hour flight.
That would be a truck that would be from Michigan to Reno, would be 2 days on a semi truck, and it would be there.
And it's like
It would had to
insane.
been a 6-month journey for this.
6 months all the way around the other side of the world
Yeah.
to
Because
get
remember in mining day, remember it was 4 to 5 months from Boston to San Francisco
on ship.
on ship. So this had to go all the way down the Mississippi, leave from New
Gulf of
Orleans.
Mexico,
Yep, leave from New Orleans, sail through the Caribbean, go around the Horn,
all the way down Brazil and
all the way around Brazil,
Argentina.
Argentina, and then back up into San Francisco, then loaded up on a
Mule truck or whatever they had.
yeah, a wagon. It was on a wagon.
Yeah.
It was 1880. Okay, so this furniture went into, so we know if Robert Reed Dixon bought this furniture that was that pricey, he probably had a little dough. And he probably had a little bit of wealth because this was really nice
Well, then
furniture
how
for
did his
people.
runaway daughter get the furniture if she ran away?
Well, good question, because she ran away. So I don't know that family,
Family drama.
what happened there. And they were of German descent.
Edith, that crazy gal.
Yeah, they were of German descent. Oh, we got to talk about the cemetery too. All right, ghost stories and cemetery right after we finish this. Virginia City is a fascinating place. We could talk for 3 hours about Virginia City. Okay, so after his death, the furniture went to Edith Dixon, who was the wife of Richard Carroll, my mother's grandmother.
Mhm.
When she passed away, it went to the oldest daughter, who was Edith Carroll, Aunt Billy, she was known as. And that was my grandfather's older sister.
Mhm.
Then from Aunt Billy, the furniture went to my mother, the oldest daughter, because Aunt Billy didn't have children, went to my mother, and the furniture came to her right ironically when we were building our Tahoe house in 1990.
Perfect place for it.
So that furniture had gone from Virginia City to San Jose, then with Aunt Billy. And I remember seeing the furniture when she lived in Kanab, Utah. So, and they lived all around the world. So it stayed with her for her whole life. And when she gave it to my mother, when she was just very close to passing away, it went back to Tahoe, that close to Virginia City.
Yeah.
So I always thought it really,
belonged there.
it just had such a great place in that house. Yeah.
The furniture, had a very long journey in its life, and so it's feeble now. So, we have to be careful with it
Yes.
and, protect it because it's, it's old.
It's here for a long time. So
Yeah.
the furniture has now been passed from my mother to me, and it now resides in our home in San Diego, which is an 85-year-old house. So 84, 85 years old. So it has a lot of, and this is a historic house.
Mhm.
So we think it's got a good home here, and hopefully it has a good home for a lot of years to come.
If
So-
bed frames and headboards and wash basins could talk,
Yes,
it's had quite the journey.
I bet it
It's
has.
the oldest thing, one of the oldest things in this home.
Old, yes. Okay, so we need to go into your ghost story.
Okay, well, this isn't really quite a ghost story. We just went to Virginia City we would have a couple of family reunions there every few years.
Every 5 years,
Yeah.
we had so in our Carroll heritage, since the 80s, I think the early 80s, we had a once a year Carroll family reunion. And Tristan and you have always grown up with going to the Carroll family reunion once a year. But every 5 years, we would have it in Virginia City. And it was a lot of planning. No one of our relatives lived in Virginia City, so it was a long way for everybody to travel. But we would go up there. I think you probably remember maybe three
Yeah, I've gone three or four times.
trips to, we stopped it about 10 years ago, but it
Daniel
went on
Kerr
for,
would have probably been happy about that.
yeah, because we did a couple things there. So Jessica will get into the ghost story
Oh
because
my
she
God.
might have one. We stayed at the Gold Hill Hotel.
I have ghost stories
Um,
spread out over multiple trips. I mean, every time we went there, there was something fishy going on.
yeah, and what part of the reason we went up there is because we have obviously all these relatives buried in Virginia City, and
Yeah.
there was a plot that was just in kind of in ruins when on one of the first trips we went up, and a few of the cousins that were very handy builders, um, they would we the fence was all fallen over. It was like a um, cement uh, concrete ring,
Mhm.
like in a rectangle, with then a fence built on top of it. Well, the concrete had like started buckling, so the fence was falling down. So we went up there, and I say we lightly because I'm not much of a contractor, but there's a lot of very
You
handy,
and, a lot of other people.
yeah, but there's a lot of handy Carol men in the family, and they reconstructed, um, basically putting this and put a new fence on it and cleaned it all up
Yeah,
and painted the
gave,
fence.
Daniel Carroll's grave a facelift.
Yeah, and it was definitely like a lot of the cemetery. You remember walking around that cemetery as a little kid.
It was eerie.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff in ruins, just absolute ruins.
Yeah, it was like a very, very old cemetery. It was all the people that died from the boom. So, not
And
a
it
lot of
was in
people
the
came and cared for their graves.
no, and it was in the Catholic part. We were buried. They were that was a very segregated cemetery.
Interesting.
Catholics, Protestants did not want to be buried by Catholics then, and so I mean, they could be from the same country, but if they were Protestant or they were Catholic, they buried in a separate place.
Yeah, so, I mean, I remember being a young kid, maybe 6 or 7,
Okay,
and we were staying in that house.
yeah.
It was a literal house. I don't know whose house it was, like, you think you'd stay in a hotel or maybe camp or something, but when you're in the middle of Virginia City, but
It was part of the Gold Hill Hotel, but it was a annex that was across the street, and it was an old, um,
yeah, you go to check in the
em
front desk and you're like, "Where's my room?" And they point, 300 yards away to an old house in the middle of a field right on the
it
end of the
wasn't that
road.
far. It was across the street down 100 feet.
I know, but it was just they were like, "That over there?" And I remember it just being creepy and rickety
But the
and
hotel was
old.
creepy in itself. The hotel everybody who stayed in the hotel had a story of something going on. So I think
Yeah.
this whole the whole Gold Hill was a big haunt.
And I don't know if I dreamed this or I was, like, lucid dreaming or walking around at night or whatever, but, like, getting up and feeling other people were around. It was only the 4 of us.
You felt something.
Other people were around. I was walking through, meeting people, like, I don't know what was going on, but it was very creepy. And then we went a few years later when I was a teenager,
Mhm.
and we did, like, the haunted
Yeah,
tour,
yeah, we were on the haunted
like,
tour.
the haunted ma so we went into a mine shaft, and
Yeah,
one of our cousins swore he saw an orb fly across, and we caught it on video, and, we were just freaking out like teenagers, but
yeah.
who
It makes
knows?
for good stories. Um, the way I feel about hauntings is, um, everybody who's ever been born on this planet and is currently not alive has deceased on this planet. And does it really matter where you are? Like, are hauntings, why are hauntings only in certain places? I think a lot of the allure of hauntings are because something looks haunted and it's old, so therefore it should be haunted,
You
and
think
it
it's
gives
confirmation
people
bias that you just people
I
believe
think
what they
it's
wanna believe?
I think it's a little bit because,
Hmm.
look at the Hilton Hotel and the skyline of downtown San Diego. How many people do you think have died there over the years, in the last 40 years it's been up there? Plenty. But do you think it's haunted?
You think people have died at the Hilton?
Yes, people die all the time in their sleep or have a heart attack. So what I'm saying is you don't go to the Hilton Hotel in downtown San Diego and say, "This is a haunted hotel, so we're gonna see something."
I think
But
you're onto
you go to
something
Virginia
potentially.
City to see something haunted.
Right. I think you're onto something potentially, but I
Yeah.
do believe that, you know, whether the spirits are positive or negative, like whether they're good or evil spirits that linger around,
Yeah.
that's up for debate. But I think, spirits can hang out
I absolutely think that.
and, because I feel in this house we live in, like,
We feel a little energy in
we
this
feel
house.
a little spunk in the house.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people perished in Virginia in not so nice ways. just like
Yeah,
our dear, dear great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, Daniel Carroll. So perishing in a really tragic, brutal way
yeah,
tends to be one of the common denominators of I'm sticking around
yeah.
because I didn't get, you know,
And if there was 25,000 people in Virginia City with a line of 50 gambling casinos, uh, bars, and brothels, there was a lot of sin going on in that city.
you think people wanted to hang out after they died?
That was the
They're like, I miss
Vegas.
it.
That was, and if you could take Vegas in 1877, it was Virginia City.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
and you can still gamble there today because it's part of
Yeah.
Nevada where gambling is legal. All right, well that's gonna wrap up the episode Virginia City. We're gonna do a couple shout outs right now.
Yeah, sorry we didn't have any video this episode. We had a little technical glitch happen here, but surely the video will be back up next week.
Yeah, we're just going audio.
Yeah, just audio.
It'll save your eyes. No one will be able to see my flashy, shiny Virginia City shirt that I'm wearing. But we'll have a
Oh
thumbnail.
yeah, you
But
can
our
see.
shout outs today again to our extraordinaire. What do I call him?
He's our producer,
I know, but he's extraordinary. So that is that becoming Tristan
the extraordinaire.
Foster extraordinaire. There we go. But our illustrious, there's a good one, huh? Illustrious producer, Tristan.
Enigmatic.
And we're gonna also shout out to Meemaw's favorite all-time band of Virginia City, the
Comstock Cowboys.
Oh, we've all heard so much about the Comstock Cowboys. So if you're ever in Virginia City, look up the Comstock Cowboys for entertainment.
Yeah.
They usually play at the Bucket of Blood Saloon,
I was gonna say the Cow Palace.
which again, the Bucket of Blood Saloon, wrong city.
Mm.
Bucket of Blood Saloon is a stop you got to make. So we really suggest you get up to Virginia City. You don't have to go up there and stay in the Gold Hill Hotel.
Make it a day trip.
You can make it a day trip if you really want to get the experience. Stay one night there. There's plenty of hotels, and you'll get a really nice experience at night.
Yeah.
Our last shout out is one for our favorite charity, Tunnel to Towers. They're doing some serious good. I think they put in over 100 first responders or veterans into houses last year. So that's a charity that
Yeah.
that really works. 100 houses is absolutely incredible.
Yep.
Mortgage free houses that they built for people that gave their life for this country.
Yeah.
So
Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Pappy Hour. We hope you enjoyed it. We try to keep them fun and fresh and historical, and we're kind of on a theme lately of doing a lot of California history, so we're hoping that you like that.
yeah,
And if any of our amazing listeners want to hear a certain topic, drop it in the comments, share and like this video. We would really appreciate it. And thanks for listening.
we finished up. We thought we lost about 3/4 of the way through
On our video.
Happy Hour. We thought the video went off, and our producer thought we lost all video. And it happens to be we were talking about ghost stories, and then we finished this podcast, and it came that the video magically reappeared. So
Do you believe in ghosts now?
woo! Chew on that one for a little while. See ya.